This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today I'm speaking with Grace Yun. Grace is a nurse and nutrition coach who helps proactive women restore healthy blood sugar naturally by activating the body's built-in metabolic system. With over 2 decades in clinical care and attention to nutrition, she helps women newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes move beyond simply managing the condition to addressing its root causes. Grace teaches her R.E.S.T method and is the creator of the Blood Sugar Restoration Project, guiding women to reduce insulin resistance and restore healthy blood sugar patterns naturally. Grace, I'm really excited to chat with you today about what you do, so welcome to the show.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, you've spent well over 2 decades in clinical care, and what strikes me about your story is that somewhere along the way you made a shift from simply treating conditions to actually addressing what's actually causing them, which we kind of briefly discussed on our coffee chat when we first met. And one of the reasons why, again, I'm so excited to be talking with you today. So with that being said, can you take us back through your journey and share what led you to this incredible work that you're doing and what you discovered along the way that changed the way you understood what women with type 2 diabetes actually need?
Hmm. Right. So, yes, again, thanks for having me on the show. I grew up as a nurse. I'm working as a nurse currently still on top of this nutrition blood sugar journey of mine. And what I noticed is that, yes, we do have protocols. So when people come in and they're sick, we do a blood sugar check, high, low. And I often find that it's high. Can't help it, stressful life. But they come in because they're sick. And oftentimes that's the number that often shows up unbalanced and high. So I said, okay, fine. High blood sugar. And immediately to our minds, my mind, it was, oh, it's their eating pattern. Okay, so, and then COVID hit, and I did also notice patterns in that. And I noticed that those that struggled the most did have high blood sugar. And some of them knew they had diabetes, some of them didn't. And they just found out when they came in, it stalled their progress. And even those that did recover, it did take a long time for them to get their wellness back, their vitality, all of that, the health that they had before. It took them a long time. And I go, ooh, I thought it was more respiratory. But it was metabolic. There is a connection, and we cannot isolate one body system to another. And I found that when their sugars were better, they were better. They improved better. They were able to go home earlier. And during this time as well, I didn't mention this, but I also had my own sugar struggle. I didn't think I was overly doing it on sugar. I did depend on it a lot. During my shifts, they were 12 hours, and I mostly ended up doing nights the latter half of my years. And I noticed that I shook. I got pale. And I know I'm Asian, but it was pale. And so people would, out of concern, my coworkers came to me and asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. And then what I noticed is that when I had my cold cup of sweet thing, I was better. Immediately, and it just didn't sit well with me, why I reacted so pronounced. And so during that time, I always knew that there was power in food as medicine. And I did my own deep dive for myself. I went deeper into nutrition, got my license for functional nutrition coaching, and then I tracked it. I tracked my own nutrition. And that's what opened my eyes to say, wow, I could, as a proactive person myself, I knew where this was leading me. Just because I had low blood sugar didn't mean it wasn't going to be high. It was extremely low. And with extremes come the high, the lows and the highs. Okay. And I said, okay, I might not have this extra weight on me, but I am going down the pathway of prediabetes. Never diagnosed, but just because of my mindset and just my learning, I knew that's where I was going. And so that's when I decided, hey, this is the big thing in terms of health, to live, to be fully functioning and to be present in this life. Yes, we need oxygen. And next to that actually isn't water, it's blood sugar balance. If your blood sugar balance is off between minutes and hours, that can be life or death. Water, we can go without maybe 2-3 days. I wouldn't try to challenge that or anything. I wouldn't try to do it myself, but that's how important blood sugar is. And I just noticed that the protocols were very standard. And then when people left, they were also given a protocol or a standardized way of doing and living and watching their sugars. And I just found that that wasn't realistic enough for people, those that have just come in and moved into the country, maybe. They're like, what is this? I have to eat this food now? And it just didn't work. And so just to be able to provide some kind of, to fill that little gap between hospital care and home care, we're not doing that really well. And so people are trying to search and look around for something that will, but yet they're met with so much resistance from the medical industry, from the food industry, everywhere, because it's not something that you usually see.
Yeah. So, and I think you're starting to go into like my next question really is that I know, especially for whether it's women, men or women, so many of them, so many people are diagnosed with type diabetes or handed that just that prescription, a list of things to avoid, things to do, things to avoid. And while that may actually manage the numbers, from what I understand, it doesn't always address what created the condition in the first place, like that root cause, right? So, from your experience working with your clients through this diagnosis, what are the root causes that most consistently go unaddressed? And why do you think the conventional care so rarely goes there or maybe misses it?
hmm For me, the sugars are just the evidence of the things that are going on inside. And so the root cause is high insulin. It's not that we need more. So there's a difference. I feel like we're treating type 2 diabetes like it's type 1 diabetes, where type 1 diabetics do not have insulin production. Their pancreas is not producing that hormone to capture all that glucose that needs to be removed. Whereas type 2 diabetes, there is so much of that insulin. We already have enough. And when you have too much of something, the body doesn't like it. And there's a physiological reason for it. We can go into it if you'd like, but for now,
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are here to learn. I think this is a very important subject because there's so many people, especially I'm sure a lot of our listeners have had people close to them that are now being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So this is very important. And I definitely want to go into this with you.
Right, right. So yeah, it's exciting for me too. What happens is that we need glucose, right? We get it from carbohydrates, but our bodies can also produce glucose if needed, if we're in a dangerous situation. When our cortisol levels high, like our stress levels, we can produce glucose because we need that energy. So I'm not saying sugar is bad, glucose is bad, but everything in moderation. And so when our bodies are starting to get resistant and become insulin resistant from the high amount of insulin that we're requiring, it's because there's a lot of glucose coming into the bloodstream, whether we're eating it and it's coming into the bloodstream, or our body's creating it, or the environment around us is creating that stress that increases our insulin needs. And so from here, it's hard to, when we see blood sugar numbers, it's easy. It's a number. Medication can lower that. It's fine. That's great. But again, the root cause of high insulin is not being addressed. And when it's not being addressed, then all you're doing is continuing to just manage those numbers with medication that sometimes, well, not sometimes, almost always does change your gut microbiome. And our gut is so important. Those beneficial bacteria is so important to blood sugar regulation. They also give us that extra vitamin B that we also need for energy and that we lose when we take medication like metformin, which depletes our vitamin B. So here we go. It's like, I want to do this for my sugar. The sugars are looking good. Those numbers look good, but then my energy is down. And when your energy is down, what do you reach for? You want to reach for something that gives you energy, right? And then because we think of it as an emergency situation, our brain is like, what's going on? This doesn't feel good. It just needs something quick. So our brain will override our common sense and even maybe some of our discipline in those urgent times. So we grab something that's quick, that candy bag or even the bread or that coffee with extra sugar. And then it's, there's so much of a layer in addressing high insulin that I feel that when we go into the doctor's office, even for them, it's overwhelming to go through the process with each person when they only have maybe 5 minutes, right? So the easiest thing to do is people like to see the numbers change quickly, right? We like the quick fix because we want to see that something's working and then we feel better. But in this case, we're not feeling better. We're still feeling energy deprived, even as we take the medicine. Then we see our muscles wasting when we're taking medication because we're just taking it, but we're not doing anything to help handle and increase that capacity to handle sugar. So for me, it's that we've got huge insulin load from the foods that we eat. Also, like the foods that are coming in aren't the best quality anymore. But that's another that's another conversation. But food quality has diminished. Our pace of life is so hurried. We need something quick. I get that. So then we have these high stress levels. We have all this food intake. That's increasing. So on that balance, we have such a heavy weight of insulin production in our body because of all of these different factors and elements. And on the other hand, our bodies can take it, right? We can eat sugar and not get diabetes. But when that when that beam has tipped and the storage capacity is no longer there, that's when the diabetes happens. That's when the insulin just shoots up there and our bodies don't know what to do because initially we can, but then when it's too much, it can't. So when I'm talking about storage capacity, I'm talking about all the things that help balance that high insulin. So my biggest thing is muscle because it's free, it's in our body, right? And we can activate and strengthen those muscles because when glucose comes in, we can use it right away. But when there's too much coming into that bloodstream, where is it going to go? It has to be stored. So our bodies are great because there's storage room in our body, and that's primarily found in muscle. And if our muscles aren't there, if they're deteriorating, if they're just not healthy, where is it going to be stored? So if it's not going to be stored in the muscle, next is up in that line is liver, but it's not by much. Muscle is about 80% of how much we can store. And then comes the liver, like about 20% or so. But the function of the liver is not to really store all that glucose. That's the job of the muscles. And then when it's overloaded and there is no more there's no room for that glucose to go, resistance happens. Where does it go? It gets shoved in everywhere else. It gets shoved into our fat cells. And then when they're shoved into our fat cells, they expand and they start to send mixed signals too. Like, oh no, I think we're still hungry. I think we still need sugar. Leptin resistance, insulin resistance, all of that. They're not getting the message that there's too much sugar in the blood. So if we can increase that storage capacity, we have somewhere safe for that extra glucose to go. Because we do need stored glucose. There's an emergency, we have to run out of here, we need it. And it will activate, our muscles will activate that glucose uptake, so we have the energy to do so.
Yeah, I love your explanation. The one thing that I wanted to ask you, just as a follow-up to that, is so you know how I don't know how to explain it because it's happened to me and even to my husband,
Hmm.
where we have the moments where we feel like we're shaking and that we need that sugar fix, like something to keep us from, like my fingers. I'll look at my hands and like it's like I'm trembling. And so does that have anything to do with it as well?
Yeah, so that is a symptom of low blood sugar. But why do we get the low blood sugar in the first place? Is it because we didn't eat enough previously? Or is it because we had a huge spike, a sugar spike? Maybe we had a cappuccino with just extra sugar because we just needed a little bit more. Maybe it wasn't balanced with some fiber to slow down that rush, that it spiked, and then that huge drop came. And so our blood is and our brain is going a little bit emergency situation here because the blood is not stable. And again, remember, next to oxygen comes the blood sugar stability. If it's not stable, our bodies are going to tell us it's going to shake. You're going to get you might have heart palpitations. You might feel it there. And you're going to say, you might feel faint, dizzy. Your body's going to naturally reach out for something quick to stabilize that sugar. So that's a sign of blood sugar instability, but not on the high end, but the low end. But the low end is equally as important as if it's on the higher end, where your urine starts to smell sweet, right? You start to form like maybe some skin tags. So even though they're opposite symptoms of the body and signals of the body, they're all pointing to the same thing, that there is instability. So same thing for me was that when I had that instability, it wasn't because my urine was smelling so sweet or I was so thirsty. It was the opposite end where I've reached my dip and I was experiencing the dizziness, the pale face, the irritability, and the hangriness. So they're equally important and they're all pointing to that blood sugar instability.
Well, thank you so much for answering that because I was just curious about like the difference, right? Because you have the high, you have the low, and what who better to ask is someone like yourself who actually this is the area that you've really dove into and this is what you do your work around. Do want to shift a little bit into your method that you've created, the R.E.S.T method, your framework for helping women reduce insulin resistance and restore healthy blood sugar naturally. And I love that the word rest is at the center of it because I think that says something really important about your philosophy. So, can you walk us through the R.E.S.T method and share how each element works together to help your clients begin restoring their metabolic health from the inside out?
Yes. So it's really nothing new, but I love it because of the word rest itself. We don't do enough of it and it's not intentional. So R stands for reset your rhythm. And I like to also say respect the rhythm, but I'll for now reset. The rhythm that I'm referring to is our circadian rhythm. We have the day and night. But specifically, I like to focus on two rhythms of our body, and that's our eating rhythm and our sleep rhythm. The sleep rhythm, I know you talk about this before in your other podcasts, but that sleep debt, it's going to pour out into everything. It's going to pour out into our decisions, and the ability to make rational decisions and common sense decisions. And again, it affects how much we eat the next day and how much, same thing for our gut, because our gut actually follows our rhythm and has a rhythm itself, those microbiome. And it's gonna it needs that rhythm. Otherwise, as you know, when you're not sleeping well, your mind just isn't there anymore. And then you can't be fully present in what you're doing. So the sleep rhythm is acknowledging that we do need the rest, not because we're weak, but because we need to repair. We need to restore and repair. Our digestive system is working all day for us. Every time we put something in our mouth, it has to start up again, right? Breaking down the food. That's a lot of energy that it requires that we didn't even know about, right? It's just happening. So it needs time to rest. And then during that rest, insulin is not being used, right? So we lower the load. And my recommendation is 7 to 8 hours, whether you sleep at 10, 11, or 12, that you get the 7 to 8 hours and that you wake up restored. If you feel restored, then you've done a good job. But I know there's a lot of other things that might impede a good quality sleep. So that's also another conversation. But just the basics right now is that 7 to 8 hours of consistent bedtime hours of sleep for repair and restoration. We haven't evolved out of that. I don't know anyone who can go without sleep and live. I think there are studies out there actually. I think it was one with 12 days, and then that
Oh,
person,
wow.
something happened to that person. So yeah, sleep, we've not evolved out of that. And the next part of the rhythm there is the eating rhythm. And I like to call this the eating window rather than time restricted eating. It's an eating window. You can eat, right? In general, if we sleep for about 8 hours, the rest of the hours we can eat. When it comes to blood sugar stability, I like to shorten that window. I like to shorten it to maybe 8 or 10 and let our bodies digest and rest for 10 hours. And if we respect that rhythm, those two rhythms, where you're sleeping for 8 and then you're giving your digestive system an extra 2 hours of no food, maybe 2 hours before you go to bed, you're not going to eat anything. And then we're eating only about 3 meals. I don't like to do the snacking short ones. The 3 solid macronutrient filled 3 meals, then you're going to get the nutrients and the energy that you need without the spikes. And that itself, if you do that consistently, you can feel the difference within a week. You can feel like, hey, wow, I didn't change anything about my diet. This is all I did. And I think I have a little bit more energy. That's the first step. Continue it on for another month, 2, 3. I'm pretty sure your numbers will go down without changing anything of your diet. And so that's R. E is for eat for the microbiome. Our microbiome is the healthy gut bacteria in our digestive tract. So it lines it. We actually have a lot of them in our body centered around here, and they communicate well with our immune system cells too, all along that digestive tract. Our gut bacteria, again, it helps regulate the blood sugar. It provides extra vitamins that sometimes we do need. If some of your listeners are vegetarian, it's kind of hard to get that vitamin B if you're not eating meat and things like that, right? So our gut microbiome can actually produce that for us if we're feeding it the things that it needs to be fed, the good stuff. So I'm talking about leafy greens, prebiotic foods that are naturally fermented as well, the probiotics. And then we have fiber-rich foods. So fiber is really good for digestion and slowing down that blood sugar, the glucose that comes into our body. It can help balance that. When you know, whoops, I had 2 raisin breads right now, but take some fiber in, have some nuts and seeds, and at least you'll balance that. You won't get a spike. You'll balance it. It'll still be high, but you've done something about it. So that's the rule of fiber. Prebiotic foods, and all of this comes from our plants. Foods that are grown from the ground, those are the things that we're missing out on. So if we can feed our microbiome intentionally like this, it's just like adding 1 extra cup or 1 handful of veggies to each meal. That's a great place to start. Naturally, you want to increase it, but I mean, I get it. It's hard to wash your veggies and bring it to work or even here to buy the fresh stuff. It's really hard to get the fresh stuff sometimes, which is why I like to opt for frozen veggies, which are just as great. Just 1 cup or 1 handful at every meal. That's eating for the microbiome. And then they're going to work for you, right? They work for the body. S is for strengthen your muscle. And I like to do this by also not just eating the protein that's going to rebuild that muscle that we have, because women in general don't eat enough protein, but it's the building and the tearing of the muscle. We all need, like, hard work is good for us as long as we get that rest, right? Which is where sleep comes in too. And even the day after exercising. But if we can really strengthen our muscle, it will build that storage capacity. And then at the same time, we feel good. It really releases these great feel good hormones too for us, that two ways, right? Strengthening your muscle. And I like to specifically use weights. That's where you can actually feel the tension and you know that, oh, my muscles are ripping here. But you know what? When they're resting and they're repairing, that the season or that time of rest is actually when they get stronger. Not when you're building and pumping up. It's that time of rest is when you're getting stronger. So muscle is part of my method there into building. And then the next is T, which stands for tame that stress. Stress, I know you talk a lot about that too in different forms. We cannot avoid it. And I don't think we need to intentionally try to avoid it, because I think that's a good balance to have, a natural tension of stress. But if it's too much and it's not healthy, we need a healthy level of stress. We need to learn how to balance that stress. And we can do that by knowing our triggers, our personal triggers. I think we don't like to talk about it much, but even like within the home, when we have that relational stress, sometimes we need to establish those boundaries for the sake of our stress levels. Exercise can help with stress if people choose that as a coping mechanism. Any type of joyful activity. So if it's a weekend or if it's an early morning when you're able to take the day off, like going to a coffee shop and bringing a book. I mean, that's a different way of handling stress and taming that stress, because once we have reset our rhythm and once we're starting to eat for our microbiome and we're strengthening our muscle, all those are different ways of handling stress as well. And I think it's so important because stress, even if you're eating well, if your stress levels are up, cortisol is up, glucose is up, which means insulin is up. So you haven't done anything wrong in quotations in terms of eating sugar, 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 but your stress levels are chronically up. And so that's just, it kind of sucks because now it's already up and you wanted that sweet thing to help you feel a little bit better, but that extra sweet is going to tip you over now. So I feel that when workplaces offer stress management, we should take it up, take that offer and, rest a little bit. Take that 3 months. Well, maybe it's not 3 months for everybody. The sabbatical is what I was thinking about. But if you get that vacation, use that vacation time, but use it intentionally to restore yourself. Not just like physically, yes, emotionally, yes, spiritually and mentally. We need to intentionally use our vacation time. So knowing what we really enjoy, knowing what our triggers are, I think is really important to do. And I know that takes a lot of time when it comes to stress.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I didn't want to pass over this as I know it's part of what you do, the Blood Sugar Restoration Project. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and who it's for and what someone can expect when they step into it?
Right. So it's a 90-day process with myself and a few others in the group. It really is if you've had that type 2 diabetes diagnosis and they just pushed it in medications to you, but you know that there's a feeling of, but I know that I've heard of people who had success stories reversing it with just food, lifestyle changes. I want that route. But oftentimes when you take that route, there's some kind of labeling going on behind the scenes. And you're considered like a non-compliant patient. Unfortunately, and I know that I've used that word a lot too, and you know, it's a big regret to use when you label people that way because it just restricts them and it crushes any type of hope and other options that they want to try. So if you've been given that diagnosis and you are seeking a different natural way out, even though you know that it's not going to take like 3 days and your numbers are going to go down, but you want you want to feel that restoration inside, that's the 90-day program. Especially if you've had other conditions that are connected or linked to it, like high blood pressure or even fatty liver, or if you're doing shift work, there are many components that might make it a bit harder to do it on your own. There's still a lot of learning in this process where we go through the R.E.S.T method, but we really apply it to your personal situation and your lifestyle so that it would work for you. Like, I mean, anyone who takes those 4 things, the 4 core foundations of the framework and do it, you can do it on your own and you can see results. There are some though that have so much on their plates that maybe they just need that extra help for the next 3 months. And that's where I kind of fit in. And then with the additional other health issues, that's where I also can help people kind of understand how it all kind of connects together. And that when you start working on this blood sugar thing, you're going to see the other conditions start improving too. And when it's complicated with other like skin issues and infections and stuff like that, you might feel overwhelmed. And that's where I step in with my nursing background when I come into helping people with their nutrition and their sugars.
Yeah. I love that. And I think too, one of the reasons why it's so important to actually have programs like this out there is that, yes, we will say, yes, you said we could do it on our own, but most of the times we might start something on our own, maybe last a week or two, and then we kind of give up because life gets in the way. You get stressed, you need support, you're not sure if you're doing things right, you're not seeing the results that you want right away because we do live in a world of I want it now instead of like it's going to take a process over time. And so I really loved that you have this program out there to be able to say, like, okay, you don't have to do it by yourself. I am here to step in, especially for those, like you were saying, you mentioned shift work. And I know as a nurse, that's something that you can speak to so clearly and with conviction because with your profession, you are on your feet a lot. You are working long hours. You are working shift work. You are working like days in a row. Feel like there's no real stop. There's no real time for you. And so I think just being able to be in that industry and finding ways to actually help people in this particular area that you have decided to hone in on and really to help people, especially even with your own experience around it and what you found for yourself. I think it's important because a lot of the time we look for solutions, but we're not always willing to go that extra mile just because of just different things. Life gets in the way and we kind of give up and we don't feel supported, or maybe you don't have the support at home and we're the only one that has to do this. So I think it's great to have programs like this. Now, one of the things that you put on your application form, which you wanted to talk about stewardship in the sense of caring for the body as a gift. And I really love that. I thought this is such a beautiful idea. And to understand that our body, this life that we have, the health has all been entrusted to us. And so I would love for you to share more about this philosophy because, again, I think it reframes everything about how we approach our health, moving us from a place of control and symptom management to one of genuine care and responsibility.
Right. Yeah, I love the idea of stewardship because that's what helps me sustain my lifestyle choices, my habits, my eating, all that. By no means is it perfect. But because I know this idea of stewardship that this body of mine is a gift, and I know there's a reason for my living, my purpose for having children or just being in existence within my family, there's a reason for it. And I just don't want to be here mindless and just doing the things that I have to do without any like passion or drive behind it. And so stewardship allows me to think of my body in this way is that because it's so wonderfully created by the creator, how can I not take care of myself? Like, if I'm valued this way and I identify myself as valued, then I need to treat myself this way as well. It's so easy to say, hey, friend, I know you had a rough day. I want to help you. Like, you deserve more than this. Your kid falls down or your coworker is sick. You want to help them get better, right? So same thing comes to ourselves, but we always tend to think that we don't deserve it, or there's part of us that, oh, no, I can handle it. But we are human. We've got weaknesses, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. We need to just embrace the fact that everything around us is a gift, especially this body of ours. It's ours. It's physically, we can touch it anytime we want. We can dress it up. We can do what we want with this body. But if our bodies are not healthy, then it does distract away from our mission or purpose that we have in our life. And I think that that's what keeps, like I said before, our habits, my choices, that's what makes it sustainable and more enjoyable. Because, yeah, at the beginning, I was like, oh my, there's so much. I have to try all these new vegetables because I only eat cucumbers and carrots. That's what my kids eat. But it's when I reach out and I try different things, and I also go back into my ethnic roots, and I'm like, hey, these cabbages, wow, fermented, they taste really good. There's a different flavor. I think it just allows me to enjoy the process more. And I know that I'm not going to get all the way to the end of perfection. That I know I love to visualize it, but that the process of it, the progress of it itself is so rewarding. And that too is the reward in itself. To feel that the little things, the little changes actually make me feel better, and then I'm not just doing it for others, but I'm doing it for myself. Because as we get older, we sometimes do reflection, not all of us, but I do encourage it that when we do the reflection bit of the awareness piece of who we are, why did I do this? My patterns, why do I keep going back to the same things that I know are destructive in my life? But when you can embrace that and get to know yourself, you start to have compassion on yourself and others. You get to know yourself and you realize, hey, you know, I've been so judgmental of others, but look at what I'm also doing. And then you have that compassion for others. And then you just you start to live life a little bit more balanced and not so like rigid. Like, it has to be this way. No, you guys have to eat this way, or you're not exercising the right way. It has to be the calisthenics, or it has to be, this way.
Mm-hmm.
You're more open and you're more free to bring in different elements of health, ways of being, and health activities and choices. It's just a lot more liberating to live this way. When you know that this is mine, I, you know, I can do something about it. And I also wanted to point out that, like, when we think this is my body, yes, it is. When we go to the doctors, we sometimes feel like it isn't anymore. And I think that's a disconnect too, because why do we have to feel that way? There should be some kind of mutual agreement that I'm going to go home with me, right? So I'm going to take your advice, consider it, but then also be a little bit more confident in my choices. Learning a little bit more about health, learning a little bit more about food and nutrition, or how to work my muscles without, breaking them down so hard, right? When we can take that ownership and apply it and being confident in our own informed decision, then going to that doctor's office, you don't feel like you're giving yourself away anymore, right? Now you can make some choices. And when you start making choices for yourself, you start to feel a little bit more better. You feel like more capable. Hey, they said diabetes is not reversible. I think I can try something now. You feel more capable. You feel that you can do something about it. And you can do something about it. When it comes to blood sugar, type 2 diabetes, you can do something about it. If you've gone further along where your kidneys are now, like, you might need some dialysis or stuff, then that's a different situation. But your body, up until a certain point, can. And usually you catch it in time.
Mhm.
So that's the encouragement I want. I would love people to know that you can do something about it. And when you take that mindset of stewardship, that this is mine, this is my body, not that you can control everything about it, right? But that you have a role in it. That no more
Yeah.
excuses, right? You don't have to do hustle grind, but you don't have to let the excuses kind of run your life. I think that is what kind of gives you that breakthrough and the freedom to start to do better for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Grace, it has been such a pleasure having you on today. Thanks so much for spending time and sharing from over 2 decades in clinical care to the incredible root cause restoration work that you're doing now with the REST method and the blood sugar restoration project. I have to say, I'm deeply grateful for Bonnie Wilderson for introducing us because it's because of her that I get to have this conversation with you today, that I got to have this conversation. And what a conversation for me that it has been. I know that as I listen back to it again, I know it's going to continue to enrich my own life, but I also truly believe it's going to do the same for the women who listen to it. Because again, the way you have, for me, the way you've reframed health is not as something as to control or manage, but as something to steward with care, with love, respect, responsibility, and deep respect for the gift that this body truly is. That's something I know that I'm going to carry with me long after today. So thank you so much for being here and bringing your wisdom, your heart, your beautiful stewardship philosophy into this space so generously.
Thanks so much, Leslie, for having me on.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Grace directly and learn more about her REST method and the Blood Sugar Restoration Project, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, your body is not your enemy and it's not a problem to be solved. It's a gift, one that's been entrusted to you, designed to heal, and worthy of your deepest care. When you shift from trying to control your health to genuinely stewarding it, everything changes. Not just your numbers, not just your energy, but the way you show up for your life, your work, and the people who love you. You were made for vitality, so refuse to accept anything less than the energy, clarity, and wholeness that is rightfully yours. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's Omni-Shade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.
Business owners, game day isn't just another shift, it's your biggest opportunity. What you show on your screens decides where fans stay. EverPass brings premium live sports together in one streaming platform built for businesses, so you can deliver the games your customers want without the hassle. Reliable, easy to manage, and designed for your venue. Make your place the one fans choose. Visit everpass.com to learn more.
Electricast.